Well, hello world. Welcome to Raccoon Point Studios. I'm Sean Bombs. This is the AVM where we talk about audio, video, and music production. Today we're talking about the DJI RS3 and should you upgrade. I'll cut right to the chase. If you use the Blackmagic 6K Pro or the 6K or the Canon C70 or the Canon C200 with longer, heavier lenses, you should absolutely upgrade. If you use smaller mirrorless cameras like the Canon R5, the Sony a7S III, or any Panasonic's Micro Four Thirds style cameras, then I would say stay where you're at unless you really need the auto locking feature. So a few years ago I got my first gimbal, which was the DJI Ronin SC, and I used that with the Sony a7 III, and they worked really well together. And then eventually I moved to the Blackmagic Pocket 4K, and they did not work well together. So I sold the SC, got the Ronin S, and that worked with the 4K well. I used that with the Venus Optics Laowa Dreamer lens, which was the Micro Four Thirds version, which was a 7.5 ultra wide. Everything was basically always in focus unless you got really close to your subject. So I didn't have to worry about focusing. I didn't need a focus motor at the time for that, and I shot a few videos with that and I really liked it. But you know, after a while you get sick of seeing the same framing, and the ultra wide was a little much. So then I purchased the Meike Micro Four Thirds Cine lenses. I had the 12, 16, 25, and the 50, and they're great lenses. They're a little bit heavier, so when I used them with the Ronin S, I needed to use counterweight on the one side or it would be too heavy and I couldn't balance. I also needed to get a follow focus system, and I ended up going with the Tilta Nano system because I figured if I sold the Ronin, then I would still have the follow focus system. It was clunky to say the least, having to use that follow focus wheel and mount it somewhere. I used it, but it was still wonky. So then the Blackmagic 6K came out, and that was even clunkier with the Ronin S. I had to use even more counterweights just because the size was a little bit bigger than the 4K, and I was using all EF glass, so the mount and the EF was a little bit longer. You know, it just would balance weird and I would have to use more weight. Also with the Ronin S, you know, you didn't have any of the locks. If you had everything set up and you were going from one location to the next location, you had to like do some stuff to make sure things weren't bouncing around, or if you had somebody in the car with you, they could hold it for you, which, you know, isn't ideal. So when the RS2 came out, I jumped right on it. The fact that it had locking motors, it has the focus wheel right on the grip, and then the focus motor itself, you can calibrate the speed and dampen it to your liking, is amazing. I wouldn't even have upgraded had it not been for the fact that I used the 6K Pro with Meike lenses, the Super 35, and yeah, I could get that to balance on the RS2. But again, I would need some counterweights. It would just be too far back and it would hit the back. You'd have to definitely use some rigging, and it would just add weight to it. It's already a heavy enough setup as it is. So when the RS3 came out and I saw that it had the longer arms and people were using it with heavier setups, I jumped on it. And now I can use it with my Meike lenses and a matte box and all that stuff. And I'm about to show you all that right now. Alright, so here is my setup. It is the Blackmagic 6K Pro with the Polar Pro matte box on the front with two filters in it. One's the 2:5 ND and one is the Pro Mist Light filter. I also have the wireless Go from Rode on here. I also have the Raven Eye set up, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but there's the focus motor, and I have it hooked up to the cage because it just seems to work. It's easier. I just have it set up that way. That's how I have it set up. Boom. I also have the lens support underneath here that came with the RS2 because the other one didn't work as well with this setup, so thank God I had that. And I have the strap around this. If you don't use that strap, you will have some movement in your footage when pulling focus. So between the lens support and then that strap, everything is really, really smooth. This lens is great. I really like the 35. That's my favorite out of the set, but I have the 25, the 35, and the 50. They're all awesome lenses, especially for the price, and to have the gears and the focus throw that they have. You can really dial in your focus with these, and it's really amazing. So that's why I wanted to use these, because I like the look of them and I like the usability. Sometimes the usability is better than the look of things, because you can get some lenses that look awesome, but when you're using them out in the field, they are a pain in the butt. I'd rather be able to know I'm gonna get the shot every time. So anyway, with the RS3, you get 2 different mounting options. You get the same one that was with the RS2 with the, I think it's the Arca Swiss slide-in plate, and that's all great. But for this setup, I used the second one they sent in with this, and it's a longer Manfrotto style plate, and the camera's all the way back mounted on it, and I have 2 screws in it, so it's secure. It's not going to wiggle side to side, which is awesome. And this setup is solid. It's a little bit heavy, but it is solid. I have the DJI dual handles here, and the thing that's cool about that is I have the motorized handle here, and it mimics the same thing that this can do for the most part without the screen. So I can hit record from here, and I'm recording, and I don't, I have a CFast card in there right now because I bought them when I was using the other one because I wanted to have that record function. But now I could use my SSDs with this because of the Bluetooth functionality. I don't even have to have the control cable hooked up if I just want the record function. I guess certain cameras, you want it hooked up so you can have other functions. It really depends on the manufacturer. So the reason I got the dual handle grip is this. It's a lot easier weight wise, and I didn't go with something like the Tilt-A-Ring just because it was back ordered for a million years, and I saw people having issues with the power supply and all that stuff, and I was like, you know what, I just don't want to deal with third party anything for this right now. I didn't mind having this other handle wired. It doesn't bother me that it's not wireless. When I do underslung mode, I want to be able to get closer to the ground than you can with the grip. And I understand why people would get the grip, especially if you're using a ready rig and you're doing all day events or something like that, but I don't do that, so I didn't need that. I'm shooting music videos, so when I do it, I can just, all right, I'm taking a rest, everybody takes a rest, and that's it. So how about I show you some footage of shooting with this setup that I did. I tracked my wife walking down the driveway. I did one set where I was walking, tracking her, and then I did another one where I was on a Segway tracking her forward and backwards. And I'll be back to talk about the footage. So thanks for sticking around. This is my beautiful wife, Liana. Say hello, world. And we're gonna test first a tracking shot with me walking and her walking, and I'm just gonna follow her. And you can start walking, babe. Polar Pro 2 to 5. I'm at a T-stop 4, and hopefully I didn't drop the ND filter too much. It's very bright out, but this is me walking, following my wife on a hot day, but it's not as humid as it's been. It's a little humid, but not as bad. So we shall see how this looks. On the little black magic screen, it looks smooth, but I'm sure once I get it in the computer, the bumps will be shown. But I am doing the ninja walk while I follow. So anyway, we have the Meike 25mm Cine Super 35 with the Polar Pro Matte Box 2 to 5 ND right now, and the Light Pro Mist filter. So I have all three filters that they make. The medium, I guess, and the heavy. Whoop, it's vibrating. Hopefully that's not showing up in my footage. I don't know why it's vibrating, but it is balanced, so. All right, so that's walking backwards, and we are done with that one. This is the Segway. I'm pretty sure both will look cool because I wasn't moving that much for it to be horrible, but and this is a heavy setup. I'm not gonna lie, this is a heavy setup, but you know, you take breaks, my friend, you take breaks. And I have the gimbal tripod legs resting on me belly, and I have my arms shoulder width on the handles. So it's not that bad, but it is 100 and something degrees on my neck right now. Just on my neck. I don't know about the rest of this day. I mean the rest of this property. All right, there we go. All right, we're gonna go backwards on the Segway, and here we go, walking. And the Segway, this particular Segway, I think goes, I don't know, 10 miles per hour at the most, which for filming is great, because I don't really want to go fast unless I was chasing somebody on a bike or something, and then I would use a one wheel for that, or a car. But for filming by myself, especially if I was doing a shot where I'm tracking someone like this, on a smooth road or sidewalk, not a sidewalk in Philly, forget that, you will hit something. It might be a crack pipe.
You would die.
You probably would die. All right. And that be that. Having these gears and this thing tied down, watch me focus to the sun. And watch me focus up close to this light. And you can see there's no bounce. I mean, there's no movement of the actual lens. There's movement of my gimbal because I'm moving all over the place. But see, and this lens barely breathes at all, if any. And now let's go for the trees. You tell me how you feel about the focus breathing. I'll try to stay in one spot. See? This thing didn't get bigger. Woo! Look at that. Look at that. Tell me. What do you see? Huh? That's pretty good for a 25 millimeter as far as the focusing, the focus breathing, and even the background blur. That's wide open, and I'm about a foot away from this light. So, all right, welcome back everyone. Before I talk about the footage and my opinions of it, I just wanted to tell you about the test. I balanced the gimbal, I auto-tuned it in standard, everything else was set to medium, nothing was customized, it's just straight out of the box how you get the gimbal, and then just using their preset parameters. That being said, the footage to me looked pretty smooth. Mostly there was some portions where I definitely had some bumps here and there. That could be me walking like a klutz. That could also be me not fine-tuning the motors to work with that setup. I think the motors definitely kicked in here and there when they didn't need to, and that will definitely affect the footage. And having the pan follow the way I had it on medium, definitely moved when it didn't need to move. So it just could be a little jerky here and there. I will say, for the most part though, it looked good to me. It's definitely usable, and if you put stabilization on it afterwards, especially with the Blackmagic 6K and 6K Pro, the gyro stabilization with gimbal could definitely smooth that out without much issue. The Segway was definitely better, definitely smoother, because you're not going up and down. The only problem with that was I had the gimbal resting on my stomach, and anytime I hit any little bump on the driveway, the shock would go up into my body, and therefore you're gonna get a little shake. And so I won't do that ever again, shooting on the Segway. So I plan on doing another video where I fine tune the motors and get things even smoother, just like to customize it to how I move, because everybody is going to move a tiny bit different. Everybody's ability to hold things in a certain way are going to be different, so it definitely will make a difference if I fine tune all the settings. And the last test with the focus breathing of the Meike, what'd you guys think? I think that the Meike cine lenses are the way to go if you want to get a low cost cine lens set. They definitely punch above their weight, in my opinion. I'm not I'm not like a seasoned pro or anything like that, but for my eye to see when I'm focusing back and forth, I've seen way worse, especially with photo lenses, especially with like the Sigma 50 to 100 or anything like that. Those lenses definitely breathe big time. Anyway, thanks for sticking around. I'm going to put up some follow-up videos testing this setup out after I get everything fine-tuned, and I'll also be putting out some videos on the gyro stabilization with the Blackmagic cameras while using a gimbal, because I've tried it out with handheld and I didn't like it one bit at all. So maybe they'll get that even better, I don't know, but for now I really didn't like it because there was moire and all this other stuff, and definitely a lot of weird stuff going on. If you made it this far, thanks for sticking around. If you like this kind of content, please consider hitting the subscribe button, hit the like, hit the bell, stay notified when I drop a new video. My wife will be joining me more and more as the school year goes on. And boom, that's all I got. Thank you. Have a good day. Be kind to one another. Okay? Bye.